Welcome, everybody. The purpose of our call tonight is to talk about criminal charges. This is something that I've typically avoided just because it's so darn difficult. Although over the past few years, I've been able to get this stuff down to the point where I can break it down. Let me print something out here real quick and we'll jump right in. So while that's printing, let me give you a real quick insight into my background. We'll wait for the printer to quit. It's only 2 pages or so that y'all can hear. First off, can everybody see and hear okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I started out, I went to college for a couple of years. I joined the military. When I went to the military, I joined as a counterintelligence special agent. It was a very atypical military career. I got to do everything from special operations to traipsing around Pacific Islands wearing nothing but a Aloha shirt and pair of shorts. I was the special agent in charge of a missile range for a short period of time, several months on and off in a place called Kwajalein Atoll, where they would launch missiles out to Kwajalein, land them in a lagoon out there from an Air Force base out in Southern California. After that, I came back, went to college for a bit, and I couldn't turn down the pay that I was getting pressed on by the federal government and other entities. So I started doing investigative work. That investigative work put me everywhere from Germany to all over the United States, several foreign countries, and I quite frankly just grew tired of traveling after like 5 or 6 years. I did many things for many different agencies. I've probably worked for, of the current 13, I think, official agencies in the Department of Homeland Security, I probably worked for 6 or 7 of them, plus a couple others that aren't really known. Nothing too high speed, low drag, just a lot of clerical stuff, a lot of running around, a lot of talking to people, interviewing, interrogation, talking to people was my specialty. So forgive me if I like to talk. I had to get good at it. After that, I went to work in the corporate arena for a little while. I could not stand the narcissism and I could not stand the corporate environment. I did it for 6 years and bailed. After that, my learning really began because I came back to Kentucky and decided that I wanted to figure out who I was. I thought I could really narrow down, if I can narrow down who I was, why I was here, and understand the purpose that we have in this world, purpose I have, then life would be better because it had been pretty hollow. That didn't mean that I didn't have a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, but it was very hollow. Not a lot of very deep satisfaction in my life up to that point. About that time, I was involved with a woman who also had a narcissistic ex-husband, and I was studying contract law, and that kept dragging me back to scripture. The custody case went downhill in a tremendous fashion, got raided by the FBI, got arrested. I beat a grand jury indictment. I have no criminal record. I have an arrest on my record, but that's not a criminal record. And pretty soon that'll be sealed too. During that time, I learned an amazing amount. I was not put off by badges, guns, indictments in court. None of that stuff really bothers me. I've been around it for most of my life. I started out even when I was 15 or 16 doing a local police explorer group where I would ride with the cops on Thursday and Friday night. And even in college, I worked for the police department. And I worked at Eastern Kentucky University Police Department. And on Thursday nights at EKU, because Thursday nights is when everyone went out and partied, it was like an episode of Cops every week. I've been on both sides of the badge, both sides of the indictment bench. I've been through a lot of court stuff on both sides of the fence. During my time with that unfortunate relationship that taught me so much, there were a lot of police visits, probably once a week for 3 or 4 years. I became very good at interfacing with sheriffs, state police, city police, and even FBI agents, CPS agents, all that. Like very good at it. I know the tricks. I know the tricks that I used when I was doing interrogations and interviews, and I know the tricks that they use. So I can't tell you that I have tried everything that I advise to folks because it would be like expecting your boxing coach to have fought every possible fight. It's just not possible. So why are we here? I'm tired of the system. Now, that does not mean I want to change the system. That does not mean I want the system to fall down. That doesn't mean that I wish to eliminate government or change government or do anything with government, because quite frankly, they aren't me, I'm not them, and I don't care what they do. However, what I do hate is people who are picked on by narcissists. And our entire system is narcissistic. That is not going to change. It cannot change because our entire system has one entity at the very top of the hierarchy, and he is everywhere. He's a sole entity. However, he is the most supreme narcissist. He's the most perfect narcissist. So with that said, there's no need for me to try to change the system. If I did away with government tomorrow, what would I replace it with? With government? Where would I get the people? So I do away with all the people that we currently have in government. Where am I going to get the people for the new government? Yeah, the same pool of fallen people. It does not matter. It's not the system. It's us. We need to learn how to work the system. And I finally figured out that it's not any one document you file. It's not any one course you take. It's not understanding how to do this document, this IRS thing, or this motion. It's about knowing who you are. When I came down here in 2011, I sat on back of my field for probably a week. And I did nothing but stare out over the holler, drink coffee. And I had a notebook. I finally got up and I printed off a sheet. And on that notebook, I wrote the words, "Who am I?" And I put that in this 3-ring binder. And then I started digging in and learning. And it has been a roller coaster ever since. So I've developed a very tight knit, close group of folks, and we share our experiences, whether we screw up, whether we have success. The successes are sweet. Screw ups are for learning. And trust me, we all screw up regularly. The goal is not to not screw up. The goal is to minimize your screw ups so that you don't wind up in prison or dead, right? But if those things happen, so be it. Once you understand who you are, you won't worry about those things. So what do they use to keep us in line? Douglas MacArthur once said that our government has kept us in a perpetual state of fear. It's kept us in a continuous stampede of patriotic fervor with the cry of grave national emergency. That is still true. You can dig back through this system as far as you want, and you're going to find that that holds true all the way back to us exiting the garden. Satan uses fear to keep us in line, fear of everything except God. One of the things that the current narcissistic system uses to keep us in line is arrest. It's so scary, right? I mean, you got somebody who could put you on the ground, handcuff you, go to jail. It's embarrassing. It's humbling. It's also a steep learning curve. And to me, it's nothing to be afraid of because I know who I am and I know what I can do. I know what my abilities are. I've also developed a network of folks, so I really don't have to worry about being arrested. Now, if you think that you aren't someone who can be arrested and put in jail for something or nothing, you're wrong. It can happen to anyone at any time. If you're in this system, and it does not matter what country you're in, Australia, England, Russia, it doesn't matter. It's all the same system. Every single country operates on the same national bank. What is the definition? They used to call it, if you look in Black's Law Dictionary 1, and you look up the definition of court and bank, you'll find it's about the same definition. It's all the same across the board. It's all the keeping of accounts. The system itself is extremely narcissistic. And I actually have a video on my YouTube channel called "The System is Narcissistic." I don't remember what I said, but I'm pretty sure it's relevant to this conversation. So what are you going to learn tonight? Well, first off, we'll touch on how to avoid arrest and charges. We'll touch on what to do when you're asked for information or to search your vehicle or your person or your home. There is something I'm going to offer you that you can do right after this video, that if you are ever arrested, ever taken to court, you ever have criminal prosecution, you ever have charges pressed against you, it will make their lives difficult. The use of conditional acceptance, open records requests, and motions to make it difficult is what we're going to get into. Now, here's the thing about finding yourself, and when I say yourself, I'm talking about the name, the person that you use to operate in commerce. If you've been following me for any time at all, you know that we are not that person, right? And we'll cover that briefly, but we can't get too terribly deep in it. I have other videos on that. What are your options if you have criminal charges pressing against your person? I mean, they're pretty limited, right? Stuff doesn't just go away. You can try to ignore it, but it'll pop back up again eventually because they don't go away. 20 years later, they can still be there. Number one, you can get a public defender. If you get a public defender, you're getting someone who is an attorney, which means attorney at law, which is different from a lawyer, by the way. And you're getting someone who is bar registered and they are paid by the same entity that's paying the judge, the court recorder, and the prosecutor. It's a big, as one comedian once said, it's a big club and you're not in it. If you have ever had the fortune or misfortune to stand by and listen while a prosecutor talks to a public defender or any attorney for that matter, you'll find that it isn't what you think. It's all contract. It's all wheeling and dealing. I have seen and heard attorneys go into a room and sit down with a prosecutor and sit there and talk about soccer games and then flat out say that they think that their client thinks they're in here working out a deal, which they already knew what they were going to say when they went back out. Now, does that mean they're dirty? No, they're licensed. And when you are licensed, you do what the licensee limits you to do. They work inside of a box, and an attorney can be useful. And I'm not even saying that getting a public defender is necessarily a bad thing. In your case, it may be fine. I recently talked to someone who I finally had to tell them to go get a public defender because nothing else was working out for them. I personally would never do it. I've had a public defender and I will never do that again. And it wasn't a bad experience. As a matter of fact, he got a 4-hour briefing on contract law. That's one of the reasons that I was able to put my toe into a lot of this stuff and know that what I was studying was not just a farce. Number 2, you can get a paid for attorney at law. Now, they might be someone who will fight a little bit more for you, but I can tell you this. Unless you pay them a lot more than what they charge per hour, you are not going to get much more effort than what they'll give everybody else. Why? Because they have a limited amount of time and lots of clients. And the only way that they make money is by billing hourly. They make a lot per hour. However, they also generally have a lot of debt from law school and other expenses like average, middle class or upper middle class or lower upper class Americans. And therefore, they are going to give you only a limited amount of time. If you think that the attorney that you hire is going to be like, what was that fellow who had the show back in the 70s and 80s? Not Columbo, well, there was Columbo, but he wasn't the attorney. The other fellow, white hair, kind of fun to watch, but he would investigate. He'd go out and talk to attorneys.
Perry Mason.
What's that?
Perry Mason.
Perry Mason was one, but there was another guy. He played in, Opie, and he was the sheriff.
Quincy.
Quincy, is it Quincy?
Quincy.
Yeah, something like that. It's not like that. Attorneys don't do that. They might if you paid them enough, but I can almost bet if you're listening to me, you ain't got enough money to pay them enough. That's a heck of an assumption, but probably a standard one. Number 3. Now, none of what I'm suggesting here is what I'm saying you should do. I'm just giving you your options, whether they're legal, illegal, lawful, unlawful, whatever. I'm just giving you options,
It was
And
man.
you will think about this one. If you get it criminally charged, there will come a point in your life because it can become so difficult. It can be so time consuming and energy consuming. You might think about this one. You liquidate, pack your crap, and move to another jurisdiction. That's an option. I'm not saying it's the right option. I'm not saying I'm telling you to do it. I'm just saying it is an option. The more valuable the charges, the further you'll have to move to prevent extradition, which may not be that far. It may be across the country. It might be across our realm. I don't know. Number 4, you can take care of yourself. If somebody else has another option, let me know, but those seem to be the big 4 right there. Okay. None of those are easy. None of them. None of them are easy. They're all hard. If you find yourself facing criminal charges, it's difficult. I know what it's like to weigh a leg at 3 o'clock in the morning and have panic hit you. That wouldn't happen to me anymore. It wouldn't bother them that much to get criminally charged now. It'd be an inconvenience, sure, but it wouldn't bother me that much. Also, the idea of jail or prison doesn't bother me that much either because I know who I am. I know who I am as a child of God. So those things don't bother me. If I find myself in jail, then it's probably because God wanted me to talk to someone there. So when I found myself in jail, that's what I did. I held classes at a table and told other folks how not to get arrested or how to get out of their charges. Now, I was early in my learning, and so I wasn't nearly as effective, but I got a lot of folks thinking, I can tell you that. I also made the guards very antsy when I was going to leave. Well, I said, that's up to you. So here's the lesson there. Pick your hard. You only get to pick your hard. You don't get to pick what's easy because there's no easy. That defines our entire life in this realm. And it's that way from start to finish. Everyone has a sucky childhood. Adulthood sucks. Getting old sucks. There's a lot of beauty in this world. There's a lot of enjoyment. I see it every day. I experience it every day. But there's a lot of suck too. And if you ever find that your life is too easy, you need to go out and do something that sucks every single day. Today, my suck was going out, filling a horse trough full of water and getting down in it twice. That's what I did, and froze my butt off, but it felt great and it makes you stronger. You get weak when you don't have challenges. So may God give you all the challenges that you need to learn what you need to learn. So the first thing that I would tell you is that all of this stuff is pretend. And I cannot hit on that hard enough. You live in a system of pretend. Pretend is the name of this entire game. And they try to get you to pretend along with them. That way, the game means something to both parties. If one party stops pretending, the other party has a really difficult time, because pretend is just another word for deception. I can pretend that I'm it on a game of tag, but if I think I'm actually it, it changes a little bit, doesn't it? So pretending may be okay, but never get too far away from the truth. And a lot of folks are so far away from the truth that they don't know who they are. They don't know where they live. They don't know what state they're in. They don't know what their country is. They don't know any of those things. Why? Because they live in deception. If you go up to the average person and say, "Who are you?" What do they give you? Legal name. They give you a legal name. A cop walks up and says, "Who are you?" A judge says, "Who are you?" Are you this person? Go look up the word person. It's not a man or a woman. You often see the word human being. What's a human? Hue means color. Man, we know what a man is. Color of man. What's color of law? Color of law is something pretending to be law, but it is not, right? A human is something pretending to be a man, but it's not. I'm not a human. I don't profess to be human. I don't like that word. I don't use that word to refer to me. And if you try to nail down this stuff in Black's Law, you go look up the word human, you just go in a big circle. Persons or corporations, companies, businesses, we work in a completely fictional realm when you're in the public. The entire democracy exists only on paper. It's all on paper. That's why everything's put on paper. And actually nothing means anything really until it's on paper. And even when you're in court and you're doing it verbally, what do? They have somebody who's doing transcripting, putting it on paper. Cop talks to you. What does he do? He goes back to his cruiser and he puts stuff on paper. It's all on paper. It's all about paper. Okay? Money's paper. The charges are paper. People are paper. The ID is paper. The laws are paper. It's paper up, paper down. It's all deception. And here's where I'd like to read you just a little bit of scripture, because there's a lot in it. Okay. And they will deceive everyone his neighbor and will not speak the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak lies and weary themselves to commit iniquity. Thine habitation is in the midst of deceit. Through deceit they refuse to know me, saith the Lord. Therefore, thus said the Lord of hosts, behold, I will melt them and try them. I'll try them. Give them challenges. For how shall I do for the daughter of my people? Their tongue is as an arrow shot out. It speaketh deceit, one speaketh peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in heart he layeth his weight. And I'll tell you, until you have your heart in the right place, these challenges will not go easily for you. I can handle an interaction with a police officer just as easily as I handle an interaction with the cashier at Walmart. Now, in large part, that's not due to any intelligence on my part. If you traverse the same trail long enough, you learn where every hole, nook, and cranny is. People look at you and say, "How did you know there was a hole there? It's completely dark. How did you know?" Well, because the other night I fell in it. That doesn't make me smart. It just means I remember what I screwed up. And that's what I'm here to share with you. A lot of what I found out by screwing up. So what does this whole truth thing mean? Well, when I was arrested for absolutely nothing that I, quote, did, which doesn't matter in the democracy, I decided that I was only going to speak the truth. So I did. For instance, there was a girl named April that they were looking for. And the first thing they asked me was, "Where is April?" And I was pretty amazed that I was asked that, because I did not know what they were there for. And I said, "What?" And they said, "Where's April? Do you know where April is?" And I said, "Absolutely, I know where April is." And they said, "Where?" I said, "It's between March and May." At that point, the game was on. Now, I got to admit, I was relaxed enough at this point that I had fun because I gave everything to God at that moment. I mean, the situation was beyond my control once this happened, right? And there were many more instances of that, but let's put it this way. I made them angry enough that I probably made them arrest. So they trumped something up, which was later dismissed. However, the other day I got a phone call. Now, there is a credit card I have, and I'll just flat out say this. I have not made a payment on it the past couple months because I forgot. So they started calling, and I've not been able to get to it. So they called the other day, and instead of hitting ignore it, I just answered the phone. And the woman said that this was a call for a business matter. I said, oh, I love business. Let's do business. She said, can I get your name? I said, which one? I have many names. Some people have called me father. Some people have called me husband. Some people have called me a nitwit. Which name do you want? She said, well, what is your name? I said, well, which one? I have more than one. She said, well, I'm looking for John. I'm just going to use the name I go by online. I'm looking for John Dosen. Are you John Dosen? I said, absolutely not. I'm not John Dosen. And she said, you're not? I said, no. I said, I use John Dosen as a business name. Now that confused her, but we went backwards and forth a little bit, and I answered every one of her questions completely honestly. And at this point, quite frankly, I'm having fun, right? And she says, you know what, honey? She says, I think I have the wrong number. I said, you do? Are you sure? Are you sure you have the wrong number? And she said, yes, I have the wrong number, and I'm going to remove this number from our database, and we're not going to call it again. And they've not. But the point of that is I did not have to speak a lie. I actually spoke the truth. And if she had asked the right question, she would have gotten the information that she was after. Unfortunately, she didn't ask the right questions. That's not my fault, by the way. So when you speak truth, you will make it very difficult for the system. Okay. Now, I don't know if there's anyone that's listening to this or will listen to it later who's been in a narcissistic relationship, a relationship with a true narcissist, a hardcore narcissist. People think, oh, how do you get involved with a narcissist? Well, it's easy. All you have to do is grow up in a standard dysfunctional family where you don't know what a real normal is, where you don't know what true love between two people is. You pass up a whole heck of a lot of red flags. You end up attached to someone who love bombs you for a while, and then things start to change, and then you're on a roller coaster ride. And that is what being with a narcissist is like. It's a roller coaster ride. It's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. It's probably a lot like people experience with a hard drug, like heroin. Yes, it's wonderful, but it destroys your life and leaves a wide path of destruction on its way out if you're able to shake it before it kills you. Can a narcissist kill you? Absolutely. They are vampires. I'm convinced that's where the vampire trope comes from. And that's where folks get all their energy drained until you get to the point where you really do wish you were dead. I mean, people who are involved with narcissists for years and years, you can tell they look very beat down. So if you understand our system, and if you understand narcissism, you'll understand our system. Narcissists love to demur. What's a demur? Well, if you're ever in court and you say, I entered this motion, Your Honor, and they just kind of ignore you and move on, that's demurring. That's what a narcissist will do. Narcissists will accuse you of what they did, and then when you bring up the instance of where they did it, they'll demur and move on to something else and change the subject. And once you understand narcissism, I can't press this enough, you'll understand our system much better. You'll be able to forecast what a court will do with a case, what a judge or a prosecutor will do with a case, just by understanding how narcissistic the system is. I'm not saying that all judges and prosecutors and attorneys are narcissistic, though you'll certainly find the ranks there. What I'm saying is once you understand that they're in a narcissistic system, they're made to play narcissistically, okay? Their job is to play the game and to get you to think that you are the person so that you can accept the charges, and they benefit from this. They make money from this. They make lots of money. So let's just start with the very beginning, the offer for arrest, okay? A lot of times you can save yourself a lot of trouble with being charged by not being charged, obviously, right? It's like putting out the fire before it burns your house down. Do not ever give a police officer or anyone working for the state your legal name unless it benefits you. And in cases where you're unpredictably, unknowingly jumped on, like pulled over, stopped in the street, somebody knocks on your door and they want your legal name, don't give it. Just don't. Okay. Now, I know that a lot of places have statutes for failure to identify. What's failure to identify? It's where you are an individual, you are a state citizen, a United States citizen, you're carrying ID on you and you're supposed to present it when asked. Now, You have to learn how to play the ping pong game of contract. Police officer once asked someone I was on the phone with not too long ago, if you don't tell me who you are, I can arrest you for failure to identify. So she asked, how do I tell you who I am? He says, show me your ID. She says, is there a statute, law, or code that says I have to carry ID on me? Notice she asked a question. She did not make a statement. She did not say, I don't have to show you my ID. She did not say, well, show me the law. She did not argue. She simply asked a question. That completely and totally nixed that line of questioning. He tried one or two more times. He didn't get anywhere. He got frustrated and he left. She won. So you have to learn how to interact with police when they interact with you. If you're going to play the license and registration game, when a police officer pulls you over, you simply roll your window down after you stop, you hand him your license, registration, and proof of insurance, and you don't answer any of the questions, period. If he makes small talk, you make small talk. If he says, how are you doing today? Say, how are you doing? You're the one out here working. I'm just going home. What are you doing? Actually, don't say I'm just going home. Don't say you're going anywhere. It's none of their business where you're going or where you've been. They'll try to get you to start answering those questions. Why? Because once you start answering those questions, they have jurisdiction over you. If a king is walking down the street and someone steps out in front of the king and says, where are you going? Does the king tell him where he's going and ask if he can pass? No. The king asks questions. How does he ask questions? He says he asks questions by acting as the king. He tries to find a solution. He acts as the creditor. Creditor looks for solutions. So if somebody steps out in front of you and says, who are you? And you say, who are you and why do you come before me? Where does your authority come from to stop me? I recommend 2 questions to ask a police officer, only 2. Am I under arrest? Am I being detained? There is a video on YouTube called Never Talk to Police. It's given by an attorney who teaches at a law school in, I think, Virginia. And the second half is given by a police officer who's a law student in his class. He's a police chief. You don't have to watch the police chief part. You can skip it if you want. You're not really skipping it because it's at the last half, but watch the attorney at the beginning. Never talk to police. If you have children, show them that video at an age appropriate level. If they're at 12 or older and they've not seen that video, you're doing them a disservice. Never talk to police. Just YouTube it, you'll find it. The next way that you could get involved with getting charges is in the mail, where they send you the invitation, the summons, right? And the next way is an offer to investigate. Cop knocks on your door. He wants to search your property. He wants to talk to you. He wants information. Unless you called them, it's not in your interest to talk to them. They have a saying, and that saying is anything you say can and will be used against you. Notice that they never say that anything you say can be used for you, and that is true. I have a video on my page called Never Talk to Police, or Why You Should Never Talk to Police. I can't remember. Scroll through my videos. There's not that many of them. You'll find it. And we go over in that video why you should never talk to police and how to handle police interactions. That's already there, so we're not going to cover it in depth here. Okay. So who are they? Who is the system? Someone once said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Sun Tzu, Art of War. Now, people say, well, but Bill, we're not at war. You know, the military's off at war. We're not at war. We're just living in our country. No, you're at war. And the reason you lose is because you don't know you're at war. To know your enemy, you must become your enemy. Be careful with that, because there's another saying that I'm going to give at the end of this video that shows you the balance in that, because you can fight the narcissist with narcissism without becoming a narcissist. Don't stare into the abyss too long, for you might just find it staring back. So you're at war, and you need to know that. You need to know that all commerce is war. And again, Sun Tzu says all warfare is based on deception, and you are being deceived right now. You think you're an individual. What's an individual? An individual is a man or a woman who thinks they are the legal name. Or I hold up a picture that's an image that's been taken of you, And I point to that image and say, is this you? And you say, yes. How can that be you? That's a two-dimensional ink on paper or a photograph. That's not you. I had a police officer, FBI agent, hold up a picture of a graphic of a woman on a cell phone. He says, do you know this woman? I said, that's not a woman. I noticed I did make a statement, but it was one that could very quickly be evidenced. Usually when you make a statement, you have to prove it, which is why you don't just give a name to a police officer. Because once you do, you have to prove it. And if you don't have ID on you, he can arrest you on the spot for identity. I've seen it done. So he held up the phone. He says, do you know this woman? I said, that's not a woman. He said, then what is it then? And he looks at his phone to make sure the picture didn't go away. I said, that's a cell phone. I spoke truth, but there was nothing he could do with that. So what do narcissists do? Well, they project. They will project their wrongdoings on you. So do not be surprised if you get arrested by police and they beat on you and then accuse you of assault of a police officer. People tell me that. They say, well, they're telling us that I assaulted them. Of course they are. It's narcissistic. That's what they do. Don't be surprised by that. They demur. You put emotion in, you do something, you say something, they just completely ignore it and go on by. Ways to handle that. They lie, but they don't really lie. You know, if you read Genesis 1, you'll find that the serpent didn't lie. He never lied. He didn't tell the truth, but he didn't lie. I once heard someone say that they've been following a spirit other than God for most of their life. Later, when someone else said to them, you said you've been following Satan, they said, I didn't say that. They were right. They didn't say that. Was it the truth? Yeah, they didn't really say that. But that's what they meant when they said they've been following a spirit other than God, because there's no other spirit other than, well, there's plenty of spirits, but they all lead up to one entity. So by saying you said you've been following Satan, and he says, I didn't say that, he was telling the truth. He didn't say that. But it's not the whole truth. They also make you out to be the bad guy. If you want to feel like a total scuzzball, get arrested. Now, if you know who you are, you'll know who you are and you won't feel like a scuzzball. It's still humiliating. If you've ever been stripped down in front of 4 or 5 people, made to bend over and spread your butt cheeks, you know what humiliation is. That doesn't really bother me because I was in the military and I'd already been there, done that. Military and jail, they aren't very different, to be quite honest. Perfect democracy is a prison. So who are you? So we know you're not the name. If I tell you, if I ask you, who are you? And you write a name down, a first, middle, last name. Assume you got a middle name. You know you're not the name. What is the name? The name is sounds and syllables. Are you sounds and syllables? No. So understand, some people say, well, that's not my real name. I have a family name and a surname. And if you look at a passport, you'll see that. Passports go by international law, and passports have a surname, which is a family name, and a given name. That's why I love using passports or telling people to use passports as ID in the public, because you're not giving a legal name, but you're still fulfilling the command to identify yourself. Well, here you go. So here's another little bit of scripture that is extremely important and short. And Moses said unto God, behold, when I come unto the children of Israel and shall say unto them, the God of your fathers hath sent me unto you. So Moses is going to the people after talking with God. And he says, look, first thing they're going to ask is, what's your name? And they shall say to me, what is his name? And there's a lot of discourse online and in pulpits and churches about what God's name is. Is it Elohim? Is it Yahweh? Is it this? Is it that? It says it right in the book. So I don't know what the heck people are all worried about. It says, what is his name? What shall I say unto them? So Moses is basically saying, what do I tell them? Who are you? Moses is asking God who he is. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. Gosh, there's a lot. That's deep. I am. So someone looks at you and they say, who are you? And you say, I am. Up to that point, you're telling the truth. Everything after that is a fiction. I don't care if you're using a family name, a childhood name, a nickname, a legal name, a business name. It's all fiction. We make it up. It's all man-made. So if someone asks you, who are you? You might want to counter with a question and act as the king by asking, well, who are you looking for? I've got many names. So what's an individual? An individual, as I said before, is someone who thinks they are the legal name. An individual is someone that's made up of a lot of entities. They think it's all together. That's an individual. It's like a bunch of people together in a group. It's an individual group. It's one group, right? And when you think you are the legal name, you are an individual. And if you notice, there is not one law, not one code, not one statute, not one executive order, no codes, nothing out there on any public law book that applies to men or women. It all applies to companies, individuals. That's it. And you can get proof that you're not an individual. It's called an assumed name certificate. I have several videos on that. The further back you go in my videos, more basic it starts, but as you go, well, at first it gets kind of complex with the assumed name stuff. But the people on this call and people listening to this are probably going to understand it pretty well. But what you'll get into is understanding how to use their documentation to show you're no longer an individual. Once you get the assumed name certificate, you do it appropriately, you've just gotten your first bit of documentation that makes you not an individual. Someone went and got a bank account today, young man and me. He went and got a bank account. And the bank account on the paper says, it says in the place for him to fill out, because he had an assumed name certificate for the bank account. He's not getting a bank account as an individual. He's getting a bank account representing a business. And it actually says non-individual owner information. I'm going to try to hold that up, see if you can see it. I blacked out his information. So it says non-individual owner information. This bank account is more proof that he can provide that shows that he's not an individual. So how can their laws apply to him if he's not an individual? When you go into court, they assume. Remember I said it's all about pretend, right? They assume. You have to start busting the assumptions, and I'm going to show you the big one to bust. But first, you have to understand creditors versus debtors. Creditors owe, creditors are owed, debtors owe. You always want to play the position of creditor. You always want to have something coming back to you. Even if in the moment of the exchange, you become the debtor, you want to immediately make it so you're the creditor. You always want to get the last word in, just like a narcissist does. The system runs off of an accounting method called LIFO. You've got LIFO, which is last in, first out. You've got FIFO, first in, first out. There's many different accounting methods. You can read up on them. This isn't an accounting class. But you need to understand LIFO, last in, first out. Judge picks up a case. There's tons of things filed in the case. What does he do? Does he read through the whole thing from beginning to end? No. He picks it up. He reads the last couple things put in the case. Okay? Period. So, last in, first out. So you want to be the last one to say anything, but how does a ping pong game work? Every time the ball comes to your side, you have to return it to their side. If you fail to do so, you lose. So you always bat the ball back to their side. Now we go into court. Well, before I say that, let's cover the ping pong game of offer and acceptance. Everything's offer and acceptance. If I walk up to you and I say, you owe me $100, that's an offer. If I walk up to you and I say, I'm Officer so-and-so with such and such police department, I need to see your license, registration, proof of insurance, I need to see your ID, that's an offer. If I walk up to you and say, I'm going to bust you right in the nose, that's an offer. Covered all this in other videos, but we'll cover it very briefly. Just for continuity for the folks who are watching this later who need this and don't have this basis. So once I give you the offer, you need to bat the offer back. Now there's 4 ways that you can respond to an offer. 2 are dishonorable, 2 are honorable. The 2 dishonorable ways is silence and argument. Both of those make you a debtor. Notice that they tell you you have a right to remain silent. They're telling you you have a right to remain a debtor. Not a good thing. I'm not saying always shut up. I'm saying pick what you say very carefully. Okay? So you bat the ping pong ball back over to their side by using one of the two methods that keep it honorable. What are the 2 methods that keep it honorable? If I say you owe me $100, you don't want to argue, you don't want to remain silent. The next way you could handle it is unconditional acceptance. You basically pull $100 out of your pocket and hand it to them. That's generally not in your best interest. The other honorable way, that does make you honorable, by the way, because if I say you owe me $100 and you pay me $100, I can't sue you, at least not successfully. The 4th way is conditional acceptance. Conditional acceptance is one of the most powerful things you'll learn. You can use it in everyday life. You can use it with your kids. You can use it with your spouse. You can use it with your boss. You can use it with police officers, judges, FBI agents, IRS agents, and anybody else that you come in contact with. And it can be very simple and formal, or it can be very simple. It can be very formal. Simple would be if I said, "Hey, do you want to go to dinner?" And you say, "Sure, if you'll drive." That's a conditional acceptance. I conditionally accept your offer to go to dinner on proof of claim that you will drive us both there. Okay. And that's how contracting works. That's it in a nutshell. There's contracting in a nutshell. I took a whole college class for like 2 years of college courses for attorneys and put it into a nutshell. So if I say to you, you owe me $100, you could say, I conditionally accept your offer to pay you $100 upon proof of claim that I owe you $100. You've put the burden of proof back on me at that point. That's what the courts do. If you read the papers they give you when you first go to court, which a lot of them have this process very, very lined out. Like I talked to someone the other day, they said they brought me into court for my arraignment and they gave me a video. I had to watch a video and then they gave me these papers, right? Well, I would have conditionally accepted all of that stuff, but that's fine. She sat through them, learned a little bit, right? But one of the things they said is that government, when you are charged, government has the burden of proof. That's true up to the point that you let them involve you in a fiction. As soon as you plead, they got you. Every question they ask and every answer you give is you tightening the noose a little bit tighter each time. A little tighter this time and a little tighter this time and a little tighter this time until you hang yourself. Stop tightening the noose. And I'm going to give you tools for that. But we had to go over a few basic things, right? At this point, what I suggest you do is write down John 19. Go read the trial of Jesus and see how Jesus responds to the court, who's Pontius Pilate. Read that. I've read it 100 times, and every time I find something new, it's beautiful. The good book says we need to be as Jesus is. That don't stop you from harm. No matter how like Jesus you are, you can still be harmed. It's not about getting out of this unharmed. It's about staying honorable. Okay, it's about the entire scriptural book is a book about how we get along in this realm without hurting ourselves or others. Okay, so you have to learn the art of conditional acceptance. You can do it verbally or you can do it formally. Join the Facebook group Uncommon Law Conversations. And also when I post this video, I'll post a website. There's going to be material that show you how to do what's called a private administrative process. A private administrative process is very powerful. It's very simple. It's a first notice, second notice, default. You can do it with people in court. You can do it with people you're already in court with. You can do it with a prosecutor. You can do it with someone who's suing you. You can do it with a creditor. I have conditional acceptances written up right here. Here's one right here for a credit card. I'm going to read just a little bit of this so you can understand here it is. Here's what it looks like right here. This may sound a little much, but I have a template for this, and you can make it very simple. Conditional acceptance can be simple. Bill, you owe me $100. Okay, prove it, and I'll pay you. That's a conditional acceptance. Or it can go like this. I'm in receipt of your statement dated only by payment due date of August 5th, 2023, which was received on August 10th, 2023, a copy of which has been enclosed herein as Exhibit A and is conspicuously marked conditionally accepted, which I did it with a marker at a 45-degree angle across the face. I'm conditionally accepting your offer to remit credits to your person and or your business upon proof of claim that Roger Hochschild, Discover Bank, or any agents or assigns thereof can provide evidence via the actual accounting and proof of loss that money was loaned to me or any business that I utilize in commerce. Now it goes on, but that's a basic formal conditional acceptance that you would put on paper. Okay. And once you get the hang of those, they're very handy because anytime somebody makes you an offer, they're also making claims. If I come up to you and I say, hey, I want you to climb that ladder over there and paint that wall. Now let's just assume for a second you're my employee. Okay. What am I claiming when I tell you to do that? Well, I'm claiming a lot of things, but one of the things I may be claiming is that you're on the clock. I may be claiming that the ladder is safe. I may be claiming that you've been adequately trained in how to paint a wall. I'm claiming that's in your job scope and you have a responsibility to paint the wall, right? I mean, there's lots of things. If a company claims that you have to go get some type of medical procedure, we won't mention the specific what, because we actually do want our video to stay on YouTube, right? You could say, what are they claiming? Well, they're claiming that this thing they want you to do is required by the contract between the parties. They're claiming that it's safe. They're claiming
that they'll pay for any damages that occur as a result. Because if I tell you to go climb a ladder, even if that's your job, if I know that ladder is faulty and you climb it and break your hip, I'm responsible. And a conditional acceptance is how you get those things out. And you can conditionally accept something that's not happened yet. I could say, Laura, I conditionally accept any offer you may make to come punch me in the nose upon proof of claim that I won't charge you $5 million to do so. So you can conditionally accept things that haven't happened yet. You can fill out an application for unemployment benefits and pair it with a conditional acceptance for any future denial. Okay. Next thing I want to get into is the spirit of making it difficult. You want to make it difficult. You want to make it very difficult. In war, which you are in war if you're in commerce, because even if I ask you if you want to go to lunch, we have an adversarial relationship at that point, right? Until we hammer out the details, we're adversaries, right? Who's going to pay? Who's going to drive? Where we're going to go? What's the limit to how much we can spend? Are we getting drinks? Are we getting dessert? All those things, they put us at war. In the garden, when we fell into commerce. We are in a realm of battle, and it's constant from the day we're born. Okay. And it gets worse once you get to be 18. Not really. I wouldn't go back to my childhood for nothing. So, are you obligated? Because you want to make it difficult on the other party. The harder it is on the other party, the easier it is on you. That's why the court makes it difficult on you. I have people all the time. They say, man, they're really making it hard on me. Yes, that's what they do. What does a narcissist do? They make it hard on you. Okay. Are you obligated? Now listen to this sentence. This is extremely important. Do you have any obligations, duties, or performances? That's extremely important. Do you have any duties, obligations, or performances? What would they provide you if they weren't narcissistic to show that you, an individual, an assumed individual, have obligations, duties, and performances? What would they provide? They would provide you with your SS5, your certificate of live birth, your voter registration, your license, all those things where you said you're a U.S. citizen. Those are the things that show that you have duties, obligations, and performances. But what do? Because they're narcissistic, they won't tell you the truth. What would happen if I went to court and said, hey, Your Honor, I've not been shown that I have any duties, obligations, or performances to this court, the prosecutor, or the state? And they pulled out my SS5, the application for Social Security number, the certificate of live birth, voter registration, selective service registration, all those things. And they say, these are the things that give us power and dominion over you, John Dosen. What would people do once that case got out? Well, they bring that crap back by the barrelful. They dump it off. They quit using it. Now, does that mean you have to quit using those things in order to get out from their jurisdiction? No, it does not. But they don't want to talk about the truth in court. Yes, they say they're going to talk about the truth, but they don't. Why? Go back to the narcissism lectures and videos that you'll find on YouTube, and you'll see that the actions of a prosecutor, judges, all those people are just like the narcissist in those videos of the narcissist that you know in real life. They don't want to talk about those things. What do? You force them to talk about those things. How? Here's how we do it. Open records request. You want to do an open records request. You want to do it to more than one entity. So what are open records requests? Really quick, I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to cover open records requests, and I'm going to give you one of the most powerful tools that you can have in dealing with this stuff, okay? Hold on, I got to move some stuff around here. So, open records request. That's not what I want. This is what I want. And here we go. Open records requests. What are open records requests? This is by every state, okay? And if you're in another country, if you're in Australia, if you're in Canada, New Zealand, London, any of these countries, there's going to be open records laws, okay? What are public records? First, they define a public record. They have open meetings acts, and they define why they have open records laws, okay? Kentucky revised statutes, and I'm just going to go with Kentucky because I have them up, okay? Oddly enough, open records is actually discussed in a section where it just seems kind of clumsy to put it, but they do the definitions, they do construction of exceptions and legislative findings. You need to read all this, okay, in your state. It's not that long. here's all the open records laws in Kentucky. They start at 0.870 and they go through to 0.884. What you're going to want to understand is how long they have to respond and what their laws are concerning the records, how much they can charge you. Most of the laws are very, very, very biased towards you. Okay. And you need the laws for the state that you are in. Okay. What you're going to do is you're going to do an open records request, and you're going to do more than one. You can do this starting tonight. All right. And here's what it's going to look like. You're going to ask them. Hold on. Got to do screen share again. I'm going to show you an open records request. It's kind of made up. Some of it's based off of some stuff. This is how I would do it. The information, obviously, I'm not going to use somebody else's information. I don't want to use my information. So I'm going to show you what an information request looks like. And here's what it looks like. All right. Can somebody tell me if they can see my screen? Okay, you can see my screen. Open records request. It's clearly labeled. Now you're going to modify this in accordance with whatever laws are in your state. Most of these can be done via email. Okay. Notice I put my name. Now, the way I do all this stuff is a little unique. You can look into how to stay in the private, but I'm basically staying in a private jurisdiction. And then I send the request to the appropriate office. In this case, it's Madison County Sheriff's Office, administrative. And this is the address that they will give you to send the open records request. To all whom it may concern, this request is being made pursuant to, and then you're going to want to put the statute. Okay, now this isn't set in stone. This is the way I did it to make it look nice and to make sure that there was no miscommunication, right? The Idaho statute 74 subsection 102, pursuant to statute 74 subsection 74-1025B, this request is not for purposes of a mailing or telephone list, because in Idaho, you cannot request open records for purposes of a mailing or telephone list. Hey, you can, there's a hamburger with bacon over there ready to fry. I hereby request any and all records. By the way, that was not for you. I hereby request any and all records that indicate the following. Here's the big hitter. Ready? Your agency and or office have any records that show name. Don't say the name. This is in present tense. Name. John James Dosen. That's the legal name. With date of birth, and then put the date of birth for the person. That's a person. We know it's a person. Is subject to performance obligations and duties to the Idaho statutes. And then I put a little something in there. Pursuant to Idaho statute 74, subsection 1032, you have 3 working days to respond to this request. They know this. I'm just putting it in for us and to make sure that I have full, they have all the culpability, right? Your failure to respond to this request within 3 working days is your agreement that there are no responsive records. All right. Without recourse, those words are important. All rights reserved with none waive ever. I did not leave off letters there. I do not say all rights reserved. It's present tense. All rights reserved. I don't get that deep into the quantum language thing, but I do like present tense. With none waive ever. Not waived. Waived is past tense. None waive ever. The S means this is an electronic signature, and then I put my contact info in there. Now, stop screen sharing. What do you get? 99% of the time, what you're going to get back is that this office has no responsive records. That means they are not going to give you any records that show that they have any jurisdiction over the name. Remember, when you're in court, they're not claiming jurisdiction over you. They're claiming jurisdiction over the name, right? Now, who do you send these to? Let's start with the local community first, the county that you're, quote, in, or your person is in, right? So you're going to send it to maybe the county attorney, the city prosecutor's office, the city police department, and the county sheriff's office. That will mostly cover the entities that are in your county. Okay. And then you're going to send it to the Well, let's just say you're doing a tax case. Let's just say you're going to take off the taxes that are assigned to your land. You could send it to the tax commissioner's office for land taxes, right? I mean, what do they have to show that you're obligated to pay taxes? They won't show it to you if they have it, which would be the things we talked about earlier, and they won't show it because if they showed that, they would show the fraud. They don't want to do that. So what about the state? Well, first I would send it to the governor's office. I would send it to the state attorney general. Okay. Those are two big ones. You've just cleared the entire state. The only thing else I could think of is if you were dealing with CPS, you could send it to the head of the whoever's at the top of the CPS poll, right? I mean, if you go to the very top of the poll, it's always the governor, right? But it's always nice to get stuff from the individual office. So if CPS sent me a message and said, hey, we want to talk to you, we want to interview you and talk to your kids, I wouldn't fight with them. I'd just send something to the head of CPS in the state and ask them, do you have any obligations, performances, or duties? They're going to come back within 72 hours probably and say, we have no responsive records. I'm going to send both that offer and that reply, whatever CPS agent said it to me. And I can tell you this, in the 4 cases that we've tried it so far, CPS went away. Was it a fluke? Probably not. But it might have been a coincidence. I don't know. You can also do federal. I'll let you figure out the federal offices you need to send it to. Probably the office of the president, probably the secretary of state, probably maybe the secretary of treasury. Like there's several entities you could send that to. And the open records laws go both county, local county, federal, or state and federal. Okay. You now have a bundle of information you could pair up with a motion to dismiss. And when you throw that at the court, they're going to find it very problematic to the point where your case may just go away. I'm not promising you that's going to be the case. If you have an ongoing case, there is a situation that we've run across where the prosecutor's office replied with this. And I'm going to read you exactly what the response said when this person's name, the name of the person, not the woman or the man, but the name of the person, has a criminal charge pending against them. This is what the prosecutor's office wrote. And this actually shows that this shows their hand. This shows the fraud. Give me just a moment to find it. First, I'm going to read to you what came from another office. Dear ma'am, reviewing your request, your case with us is with this police department over here. You will need to contact them for those records. The only records that we have that pertain to you is for this sheriff's office would be the jail records where you were arrested. Is that what you're referring to? If you listen to the words there, you heard them say they don't have anything. They tried to distract the matter. They don't have anything. Okay. Were they legitimately confused? Probably not. When a judge or a prosecutor or an attorney sees this open records request, they're going to know what you're doing. They can't admit it, but they're going to know what you're doing. Here's what came back from the request for records, request for public records, when this person had an already existing criminal case. Your request for public records noted above was received by the police department on this date. Your request for records has been denied because the records you have requested, so they denied the records. Now, this gets good. The records you have requested are exempt from disclosure. Now, keep in mind, after doing these record requests dozens and dozens of times, nobody's ever responded with any record. They don't have any. They won't give you the records that they do have, which would be the driver's license, the voter registration, the certificate of live birth, and all these other things wherein you claim to be a U.S. citizen, which would be what they would give you if they wanted to be non-narcissistic and truthful, but they won't. Here's the reason that they stay. This is great. Disclosure of the record will impede an active law enforcement investigation or proceeding or deprive a person of a right to a fair trial or an impartial adjudication. Let me tell you something. You don't want a fair trial and you don't want an impartial adjudication. You want an unfair trial and you want an unfair adjudication, but you want it to be swayed in your favor. Okay. Screw the fair trial thing. That's like two people facing off and both of them have a single shot revolver. I want the fully automatic. Give him the knife. I want to win. Okay. So what's a couple of things they can do here? Well, I once heard somebody say that if you're ever arrested, you need to waive your right to jail. And I thought that was interesting. And then later I figured it out. Going to jail is a privilege. It's a right. You have a right to go to jail. It's a way to pay for something. So if you waive that right to go to jail, you don't want to accept that right. I mean, they're giving you a benefit. It's a benefit and a privilege to go to jail. Think about that for a minute. They're giving it to us as a benefit and privilege, which is perfectly narcissistic. What does the narcissist do? They'll lock down your money. They'll scare away your friends. They'll get you fired from your job. They'll spend your money. They'll turn your life upside down and tell you that it's all for you, right? We don't want to impede your right to a fair trial, right? Because they knew that if they responded back, they have no responsive record. That case, nixed. It's been gone. There's no way they could prosecute her at that point. So if you're already in an investigation, a case, whatever, you've already got criminal charges against you and you get this, first off, it would be, that's why it's important to do this stuff before you get involved in some crap, right? What do? Well, you conditionally accept it. You would conditionally accept it. And then you could pair it with motion. Dismiss the case. Now, I'm going to speak some words here that may be a little confusing until you read through them a couple of times. You're listening to them a couple of times. You could, if you've already done these records requests and gotten no responsive records back, print them all off, pair them with a motion to dismiss and give it to the court. If you don't know how to write up a motion to dismiss, you need to go get Jurisdictionary. Do a search for it. Jurisdictionary, Jurisdictionary, dictionary with juris in front of it. It's a lawyer from Florida. I do have a link to do this as an affiliate. It's the only thing I ever get money back from is an affiliate for Jurisdictionary. I don't really care about it though, as far as like making money. You just go to the Jurisdictionary website if you want to order the stuff. It is a course well worth taking. You can do it in the weekend if you're pressed. Most of law school is a waste of time. You do not need to know the ins and outs of the Blue Sky Law from 1957 in order to press a claim about a dog bite case. The actual statutes that cover dog bites are probably about this long. What you need to know is how to file a motion, how to work up affirmative defenses. That course is irreplaceable. And if you're in another country, I hope you have something there that resembles Jurisdictionary, but if you don't, just go through Jurisdictionary. Your system's going to be very similar. It's just like in the US, we call them attorneys. In the UK, they call them barristers. Same thing. Over there, they got to wear wigs. That's the only difference. Same thing. So if you take Jurisdictionary, you're going to know how to operate in the court. That's very important because when somebody says to me, I'm going to court, and I say, well, do this, do this, do this, and then file it with a motion, and they go, how do I write a motion? That's bad. You need to go get an attorney if you don't know how to write a motion. But you can learn how to do those things very simply with Jurisdictionary. It's like $250. It's worth every penny. Go through it with your neighbors, your friends, your kids, especially your kids, and teach them this stuff, okay? But here's the way you could write the motion. You could write the motion up as if it's a conditional acceptance. Listen to these words, and I could put these at the top of a motion. Motion to not dismiss upon proof of claim of obligation. Motion to not dismiss upon proof of claim of obligation. So does that mean if they grant the motion, that they're denying the motion? I'm throwing some confusion in there, aren't I? That's deliberate. Keep your enemy confused. And I would write into that if there is no proof of obligation, duties, or performances shown, the case will be dismissed. I would also write in that the case isn't dismissed. Perhaps the prosecutor is taking on the full brunt of the damages that may occur if they carry on as if I have obligations or the name has obligations, performances, duties. I'm going to write this into the chat. Obligations, performances, or duties. You could use that in a one-on-one with anybody. Cop says, hey, I need your ID. You say, do you have any evidence of obligations, performances, or duties? You could even carry the open records request with you if you want to and hand them to them. here you go. Everybody above you's done said that I have no performances, obligations, or duties, but you're telling me that I have an obligation that I need to perform and I have a duty to perform. So which is it? Are your bosses right or am I right? Which is it? Or are you right? Sorry. Okay. I've gone through a lot of information there really quickly. This went over from what I thought it would. Spoke really quickly. I'm going to put this up as a recording. I'm going to put supporting documentation with it. If you're not in the Common Law Conversations group, join. I'm also going to put the documents on the website to help guide you. However, I would caution you against using documents as a template. It's okay to do that with an open records request, but when you start writing motions, you really need to use your own words. You start doing conditional acceptances, you really need to use your own words, because when you start using someone else's words, they will try you in court. And when I say try you, I don't mean a trial. I mean, when the judge says, "Who are you?" That's a trial. Look at the trial of Jesus in John 19. That was his trial. Pontius Pilate left and said, "I find no fault in this man." That's what's so phenomenal about this. Jesus was the ultimate creditor. So, conclusion. There are not more than 5 musical notes, yet the combinations of these 5 give rise to more melodies than can be heard. There are not more than 5 primary colors, yet in combination they produce more hues than can ever be seen. There are not more than 5 cardinal tastes, yet combinations of them yield more flavors than can ever be tasted. That is also Sun Tzu in The Art of War. If you would like a really quick treatise into the mind of the narcissist, read the 48 Laws of Power by, I think, Brian Greene. That is the game book for a narcissist. It's also the game book for engaging in combat. The reason I read that is because what I just gave you were very basic tools. Offer and acceptance, conditional acceptance, right? The backwards and forth ping pong game of commerce, right? Open records requests, filing a motion, and writing that motion as if it's a conditional acceptance. Those are just 6 things. I could probably pull one of those and get the perfect 5 like I just read. And if I had done some forethought on this a little bit deeper, I probably would have made it sound better. But those 5 things yield you more tools than you will ever be given by a public defender or an attorney. Why? Because they can't give you those tools, because inside the box that they're in, they don't have those tools. I have explained this stuff to many an attorney, and a lot of attorneys have said, "I wish I could use a lot of these things for my clients," but they can't because they're licensed and they have particular levers they can pull, and that's it. I can guide you, if you would like, to one attorney who rescinded his bar license after a couple of years of study, prompted when we had a conversation, and we had multiple conversations after that, because he wanted to do something where he could help people. And if you want to heal someone, don't get a medical license. If you want to serve people, don't form a 401c3 corporation and call it a church. And if you want to help people with their legal problems or their lawful problems or their problems that they encounter in their life, don't get a bar degree. It's just not needed, and it will actually lock you into a particular box, and that's where they want you. They want you in a box. Think about a courtroom. The judge is in a box, jury's in a box, the court reporter's in a box, the witness is in a box. Matter of fact, the only 2 people that aren't in a box are the plaintiff and the defendant, or the defendant and the prosecution. Those are the only 2 people that aren't in a box. Everything else is in a box. Look, if you look at a Kentucky, I don't know about other states, but if you look at a Kentucky traffic ticket, it's called a Commonwealth of Kentucky Uniform Traffic Citation. Everything on there is in a box. It's boxes all the way down. Go look up the 4 corners rule. If I have a piece of land and I put a box around a piece of it, that sets it off. It makes it separate. It's an enclosure. It means that that little piece of land is not part of the bigger piece of land, which is in the bigger box. What's a paper? Paper is a box with a bunch of smaller boxes on it. You'll notice that none of the private documents that I write have boxes on it. There's a reason for that. Yet if you'll look at all the public documents, what do they have? They have boxes. They don't care what you put in the box. They just want to put you in a box. That's what jail is, the box. Stay out of the box. That's what the purpose is, stay out of the box. So I hope this helps a lot of you guys in handling criminal stuff. If you really pour through the possible combinations of what I just gave you, it's deep. And it can be used to completely and totally lock up a court. And that's what you want to do. It's a big machine. Throw a wrench in it. Throw a wrench in it and make it difficult on them. You'll make it easier on you. Things aren't going to go away easily, but it is possible to make things go away. I've seen it. I can tell you all kinds of stories about it. I've watched it. I've done it myself. And when you understand the system and you understand its narcissism and you understand how narcissists think and work, and you use that open records request and you show that there is no obligations, duties, or performances that they can prove, you'll find that all you're doing is engaging in a big freaking game of pretend. Don't pretend. Stick to the truth. And I'd like to read one last thing before I go. I promised that would help you with this because you don't want to stare in the abyss too long. You don't want to become a narcissist, right? Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. And I'm going to stop the recording so we can take questions.